She crossed the line and spat in his face. He silently gagged her in under a minute. The glass walls of the interrogation chamber offered a panoramic view of Aeralis, the city of spires, levitating high above the Earth's atmosphere like a crown of silent ambition. Morning light dripped through the angled beams of steel and sky glass, casting reflections that made the room feel like a prism, suspended between diplomacy and war. She stood still, hands bound, eyes unflinching. Lyrielle, the Elvarin. Skin like polished pearl, ears tapered and noble, hair a fall of midnight cascading down her back. Dressed in the crimson uniform of her delegation, she looked less like a prisoner and more like a provocation sculpted by pride. Rei Calderon entered without a word. No guards followed. No tools. No threats. Only him, broad-shouldered, expression unreadable, dressed in black fatigues that bore no insignia. His arms crossed loosely, not as a defense, but as a silent barrier between questions and truths. He didn't sit. He didn't speak. He only looked at her. Seconds stretched like metal pulled thin. The hum of the city outside filled the void. A drone hovered in the far corner, recording the moment for officials who preferred distance. Lyrielle tilted her head, studying him with interest veiled as disdain. "You're the one they sent." Rei said nothing. Her lips curled. "I've seen statues with more personality." Still, he remained silent. She took one step forward. The chains around her wrists clinked softly. Her chin lifted, and in a motion both sudden and deliberate she spat. The glob of contempt landed just shy of his boot. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't resistance. It was worse, a challenge. Rei didn't flinch. He looked down at the spit, then back at her. A moment passed. Then he moved. With the grace of someone who had done this far too many times before, Rei reached into the pouch at his side and retrieved a strip of tactical fabric, dark, flexible, strong. Before Lyrielle could step back or even shift her weight, he crossed the space between them and looped the band around her mouth in one fluid motion. No aggression. No anger. Only the efficiency of silence. Her eyes widened not in fear, but in the smallest flash of confusion. She expected retaliation, maybe words, maybe fury. Not this. He stepped back, gaze level, and crossed his arms once again. The cityscape behind them blinked with aircraft and distant construction. The wind didn't touch them here. The walls of Aeralis held firm. Lyrielle's jaw clenched behind the gag. Her breath flared through her nose, and she met his eyes like a blade drawn in protest. Yet something in her gaze had shifted, a question, maybe, hidden beneath layers of arrogance. Rei saw it. He didn't acknowledge it. He had read the reports. Her ship intercepted outside the Earth sphere. Diplomats killed en route. Only she survived. The official claim was a navigational malfunction. But her pulse didn't lie, and neither did the encoded signals that pinged off her vessel seconds before its seizure. She was no ambassador. And yet, she was calm. Too calm. He walked slowly around her, eyes measuring the tension in her arms, the control in her posture. Her species was known for eloquence, manipulation, an aversion to brute force. The gag wasn't for silence, it was to test her. What would she do when stripped of the one weapon she knew best? Her shoulders rose, but not with panic. She adjusted. Adapted. She turned her head to follow him as he circled, watching like a predator studying another. In that moment, Rei knew she was waiting for something. A signal. A change. A mistake. He returned to his position in front of her, unblinking. Minutes passed. She didn't squirm. He didn't blink. And somewhere in that chamber of sunlight and silence, a war far larger than either of them began to whisper its first notes. The drone in the corner flickered. Rei narrowed his eyes. The recording should have been stable. He made a mental note. Lyrielle noticed. Her eyebrows lifted slightly, amused. Even gagged, she was speaking. He wondered not for the first time whether the war had already started, and if he, standing here with folded arms and unreadable silence, had just become its first casualty. Outside, Aerialis shone like a dream suspended above a dying world. Inside, a prisoner and her captor stood locked in a standoff of breath and will, where every second carved itself deeper into the unspoken. And neither of them said a word. The screen flickered with static before stabilizing into lines of alien script. Rei stood alone in the observation deck, a chamber of steel and glass high above the clouds. The footage from the Elvarin vessel played again slow, grainy, and silent. It wasn't the violence or the wreckage that caught his attention. It was the whisper. A frequency beneath human hearing. A pattern in the distortion. A pulse of symbols flickering like candlelight through the static coded, deliberate, ancient. He paused the feed and zoomed into the spectral data. There, hidden between bursts of radiation, the language surfaced, Elvarin. A dialect centuries old. Extinct, supposedly. But she knew it. He glanced through the glass at the chamber where Lyrielle sat, still bound, still gagged. Still watching. The silence had stretched into hours. Tension had dried into formality, but something deeper had taken root in that quiet curiosity. Rei entered the room without a word, again. But this time, he paused at her side and slowly reached up. He untied the tactical gag. The fabric fell to the floor like a discarded oath. Lyrielle flexed her jaw, rolled her shoulders slightly, and inhaled. Her voice, when it came, was soft but unyielding. It took you long enough. Rei didn't respond. She turned her head and gave him a look that was half triumph, half amusement. You found the message, didn't you? He met her eyes. What does it say? Truth is not a single thing, Agent Rei, she said, savoring the syllables like wine. It is layered. Like ash on a battlefield. Translation, he said flatly. You took my voice. Now you want my mind. You humans never change. His stare didn't falter. The signal, was it a warning? A threat? She leaned back in her seat, testing the limits of her restraint. It was a memory. Rei narrowed his eyes. Memories don't kill people. Her smile was slow, deliberate. No, but they awaken those who do. A pause thickened the air. She continued, her tone poetic, biting. Once, we believed Earth was a cradle of promise. Now it feeds its children metal and fear. Tell me, REI, do your people still dream in color, or only in grayscale command chains? He didn't answer, but his jaw tightened. She saw it. What do you want, Lyrielle? To remind you what was forgotten? And what did we forget? Peace, she whispered. Not the absence of war. The presence of understanding. You're dodging, he said. No, she replied, more sharply. I'm choosing my truths. One by one. Like stones across a river. Step carefully, or you'll drown before the crossing. He took a breath, fought the urge to interrupt. Her words were designed to provoke, to derail. And yet something in them rang with intent. Then give me the first stone, he said quietly. Her expression shifted. Less taunting, more deliberate. The message was a lock. I am the key. But you don't just use a key, you must earn it. REI stared. You're bargaining. No, she said. I'm warning you. Silence again. The city behind them sparkled like a mirage. Inside, it felt colder. You think you're in control, she said softly. But tell me, REI, when was the last time you disobeyed a direct order? His breath stilled. She smiled, faint but real. There it is. Doubt. Finally, something honest. He stood straighter. If you want to be taken seriously, speak clearly. Oh, I will. But not today. Her voice dropped, almost tender. Today, I let you question everything. Tomorrow, I give you answers you'll wish you'd never asked for. REI turned to leave. Wait, she called, and for the first time, her voice held no edge. He paused. The stars will fall, she said, almost to herself. And when they do, remember this moment. When silence could still protect you. The door hissed open behind him. He walked out. Behind the glass, she closed her eyes. And began to hum. The command came down like a gavel through fog. 12 hours. If Agent REI Calderon failed to extract viable intelligence from the Elvarin prisoner within that window, Lyrielle would be transferred to Vortec Black, an off-Earth facility known more for extraction than interrogation. No one came back from Vortec. Not whole. He stood in the control chamber as the ultimatum flickered on his screen, fingers curled so tightly his knuckles whitened. The message was marked high priority. Non-negotiable. He turned toward the glass where she sat, still restrained, still watching. She seemed too calm for someone whose time was evaporating. The room began to shift. He hadn't authorized it, but the AI did not answer to him alone. A silent protocol, encoded deep within the station's systems, had activated. The walls dimmed. The light turned clinical, void of warmth. The temperature dropped by several degrees. The chair she sat in altered its pitch subtly, a calculated disorientation. A psychological operation. Applied pressure. What are you doing to her? REI demanded to the unseen surveillance officers behind the glass. No response. He stepped into the chamber. The door hissed shut behind him. The chill hit him first, artificial, sterile. designed to seep beneath skin and armor. Lyrielle didn't shiver. But her smile was gone. He walked forward, crouched slightly to meet her eye level. They are escalating it. You know what comes next. Do you care? Her voice, low and clear, seemed to slice through the cold. I don't want it to go there. It already has. There was silence. Only the low hum of environmental distortion. Then she said, you used to paint. Didn't you? When you were a child. You loved colors. Red, especially. The word struck like a needle through armor. His brow furrowed. How do you know that? She leaned forward. The basement wall. Your mother caught you drawing when you should have been sleeping. You said the world inside your head was louder than your dreams. He stepped back. Memory unfurled inside him like smoke unbidden, vivid. A red circle scrawled on concrete. His mother's hand gripping his shoulder. Her voice, half laughter, half worry. Rei's breath caught in his throat. How? She didn't answer directly. I'm not here by accident, Rei. I wasn't caught, I was sent. The chill in the room deepened, but it wasn't the temperature. You're part of something bigger. A fracture, she said, eyes gleaming. A crack in the mirror you've been told to believe is the truth. The signal from Elvarin wasn't a threat. It was a call to those who remember. His mind raced. That signal. The language. Her presence. Now this. So you're a messenger? A witness. Rei stood there, uncertain. His whole life had been angles and orders. Logic and structure. Her words were pulling threads he didn't know were loose. She continued, softer, this room is a cage for me. But it's also a lens. Under pressure, what is false breaks. What is real remains. You're trying to manipulate me? No. I'm trying to prepare you. His earpiece chirped. A voice flat and cold. 4 hours remain. He didn't respond. Lyrielle looked at the glass above, where the unseen watchers hid. They'll break me if they can't break you. But they don't understand. I am not the key. Then who is? You, Rei. You've always been. He didn't speak. Couldn't. The lights flickered. A power drain. Lyrielle's chains shifted slightly with a hum. When they turn the screws harder, remember this, pain does not reveal truth. It only silences what you fear to hear. And with that, she closed her eyes. Rei stood frozen, no longer sure who the prisoner truly was. Rei stood beneath the collapsed dome of an old observatory nestled in the lower tiers of Sector Thalos, where the sky was nothing but flickering neon reflections off rusted towers. Here, deep in the forgotten belly of the station, he waited. The figure who emerged from the shadowed corridor looked more ghost than man. Dr. Havenmar, one of the last living scholars of Elvarin linguistics. His eyes, cloudy with age, sharpened at the sight of Rei. I don't do military translations anymore, Haven rasped. Rei didn't waste time. He activated his holoslate and played the recording Lyrielle's final words before the last session ended. The old man stiffened. His breath hitched. Say that again, he whispered. Rei replayed it. Heaven's hands trembled as he drew archaic symbols into the dust with one bony finger. It's not just a phrase. It's a key string. A blood-lock protocol, ancient command code embedded into our people's songs. Modified for human tech, it could. Could what? Trigger a cascade. He looked up, grave. A chain reaction. Any system seeded with Elvarin code would recognize it as an emergency failsafe. In your tongue, mass self-destruct. Rei's chest tightened. The defense satellites. The orbital shield networks. They used fragments of Elvarin data during the last war, for efficiency, for encryption. She hadn't been poetic. She had been warning him. He ran. By the time he reached the Aeralis chamber, the lockdown had already been triggered. No alarms. Just quiet lights and sterile hums. The door slid open. She was free. The bindings lay coiled on the floor, carefully undone. She stood, hands behind her back, not moving. Waiting. Rei's weapon stayed at his side. No threat. Not yet. You left the door unlocked, she said. No, you picked the lock. Her gaze was calm. Semantics. A long pause. Then Rei stepped forward, slowly. He didn't speak. Instead, he raised his hand. 3 fingers out, curled palm, a question in Elvarin sign. Are you enemy? Lyrielle answered with a motion just as smooth, 2 fingers crossing over her chest. Not to you. He breathed, just once. Then asked again. Why? She hesitated. Then formed the answer with grace. Because war wants me to be. A noise crackled in his earpiece. Authority. Demands. Location checks. He switched it off. They are coming, he said aloud. Then choose, she replied. He did not reach for restraints. He reached for understanding. They stood inches apart, the world behind glass still watching. Lyrielle extended one hand, palm open, the Elvarin gesture of unarmed trust. Rei looked at it. His fingers hovered. And then he answered. Not with words, but with blood code of his own. He pressed his palm to hers, repeating the ancient bond seal, illegal under human law, forgotten by most Elvarin exiles. Their skin shimmered where it met, a brief pulse of mutual recognition. When the door opened again, Lyrielle was gone. Only Rei remained, silent, marked by what he now knew and what he had chosen not to stop. The report he submitted was clean. Empty. A footnote in bureaucratic jargon that meant nothing and said everything, subject unreceptive to further inquiry. No significant intel recovered. He watched it upload, the system accepting the lie without question. The red authorization stamp blinked twice. Case closed. Outside the chamber, TRM Aeralis resumed its slow, mechanical hum. No alarms. No trace. Just silence, carefully preserved. She was gone. Rei had walked her through a forgotten maintenance duct, through halls no longer mapped, past cameras that hadn't functioned in years. He said nothing. Neither did she. It wasn't necessary. As they reached the last sealed hatch, she turned. For a moment, in the low light of the emergency corridor, her face was almost human, tired, grateful, uncertain. "You shouldn't trust me," she had said. "I didn't," he replied. "I trusted what you didn't say." Then she disappeared into the shaft, and he sealed it behind her. No trace. No backup. Not even a time-stamped scan. That night, the station suffered a systems breach. Low-level, non-destructive. Official logs would chalk it up to solar interference. Unusual, but explainable. In the chaos, it was assumed Lyrielle had escaped. REI didn't correct them. He sat alone in his quarters, lights dimmed, the hum of recycled air the only sound. On the wall opposite his cot, the hollow glow of the interrogation feed shimmered in standby. A screen that no longer showed her face. His hand drifted to the desk drawer. Inside, the torn strip of tactical binding he had once used to gag her now folded neatly, an artifact of a decision no one would understand. He replayed the moment she met his palm with hers, the silent bond, the shimmer of shared code. What had he just done? He had broken protocol. Falsified evidence. Released a potential enemy of the state. He had chosen to protect her, based on little more than instinct, half-truths, and a flicker of ancient trust. Was that betrayal? Or something deeper? A week passed. Every day, he expected the knock. The tribunal. The fall. Instead, a message. Untraceable. No signature. A sequence of pulsing glyphs across his personal terminal. Ancient Elvarin translated roughly. The stars breathe a moment longer. War has paused. Because of your silence. REI leaned back in his chair, eyes closed. Not victory. Not absolution. But pause. He had not ended a war. Only delayed it. Long enough, maybe, for something better to emerge. The camera in the corner blinked red. Recording. He looked into it. Didn't speak. Let them wonder. In another part of the system, beneath the skyline of smoke and synth glass, a woman cloaked in rust red stepped into the crowd. Her ears were hidden now. Her face unfamiliar. She vanished before anyone noticed. The war had not ended. But silence, for now, was survival.